Welcome to Trucking Vet Media. Got a story we're going to cover today. An article from the Trucker, thetrucker.com, trucking industry newspaper, online newspaper. And they cover recruiting. Old Cliff Abbott over there wrote the article. And I guess he did a little bit of recruiting back in the day. Of course, I don't know if you know my past, but after I came off the road, I did some recruiting for a trucker recruiting company, like a third party company. They recruited for several trucking companies. So we'll cover the article of what to ask a recruiter if you're looking for a job. So if you're new to the industry looking for a job, or if you're a veteran in the industry looking to move to another company, and you want to ask the right questions, that's for sure. Not asking the right questions of the recruiter can make a big difference. So Cliff over there covers what you should be asking, and we'll go over those. I'll comment on them and see what's going on. Here we go. Now, this is Cliff talking. Here's a true story from my past life as a driver recruiter. I won't drive a certain amount of truck brand, said a new employee. If I known this company had them, I never would have came here. The thing is, that driver did come to new employee orientation. After the carrier absorbed the cost of background reports, paid for transportation, lodging, and meals, and devoted hours to recruiting, testing, and training, they decided to inform us of a stipulation he could and should have mentioned in his first phone call with the recruiter. Unfortunately, such scenarios are not uncommon. That's right. Ask the questions. And if you don't like a certain brand of truck, that would be one of the first things you would try to find out what company. If I want to interested in this company, what kind of equipment do you drive or do you have to drive? Some people are very particular about the brand of truck they drive. Other ones don't care. As long as it's making them money, they don't really care. Why does this happen? Recruiters are trained to gather information from job applicants. They have a list of questions a prospective hire must answer before being considered for employment. Recruiters have talked with hundreds, maybe thousands of drivers, and they know what to ask in order to move an application through the process. Their questions often revolve around qualifications such as your driving record and work history. Drivers, on the other hand, are not trained in how to speak with a recruiter. Of course, you'll need to know whether you qualify to work for that carrier, but being qualified doesn't necessarily mean this is a job you want. Now, first, one of the things I found out when I was doing the recruiting thing a while back was CDLs now have automatic restrictions. So some of the companies had all manual transmissions. So you had to make sure that when you talk to the potential driver for this particular company that they did not have a um, automatic restriction on their CDL. So, what's important to you? The first step in applying for a new job is determine what's most important to you. Is it pay? That's very important. Home time? That's very important. Truck condition? Freight lanes? All those are good questions. Very important. Make a list and put the items in order of importance. Make subcategories for the items on your list and make sure any deal breakers are identified as such. What's the pay scale? For example, if pay is at the top of your list, you'll certainly want to ask for the pay rate, but you also need some details about how your pay will be calculated. Is the pay applicable to all miles driven? Does it include empty miles? Does the rate change depending on the length of trip or whether you'll travel in certain areas? Does the quoted rate include safety or performance bonuses you may or may not qualify for? These are all very good questions. If the carrier pays by the mile, you want to know how many paid miles you can expect each pay period. After all, a great pay rate is meaningless if drivers aren't getting miles. Most carriers track the efficiency of their fleets and will be able to provide an average length of haul and average miles per week. If the carrier offers multiple types of jobs, such as regional, dedicated, or 48 state hauls, make sure the mileage estimates you're looking at are for the fleet you're interested in rather than an average of the entire fleet. Accessorial or extra pay for things like detention or layover often become problems long after a driver has been hired and completed orientation. You'll want a breakdown of how much this pay is and how it's calculated. Detention pay has always been a stickler in the industry. The company I was with at one time did pay detention pay after 2 hours, I think, of sitting at a shipper or receiver, but you had to have a signature from the shipper or receiver that you were detained past that 2 hours. Most shippers and receivers would not sign off on that because they know they were going to get charged. So if you need a signature from the customer before you get detention pay, you might want to be aware of that. Yeah, there he is. Does detention pay start after you've been at the customer for an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours? Does a customer need to sign something? See, there you have it. That's a red flag for me. Will you be paid for detention when you're paid for that load, or will that pay be delayed until the customer pays the carrier? See, that's another red flag. What happens if the customer doesn't pay the detention? That's some red flags there about as far as detention pay. Layover is generally paid when the carrier doesn't have a load for you to haul, but the conditions can vary between carriers. Is there a waiting period before you qualify for layover? Some carriers don't pay layover if you've been waiting long enough to put together a 34-hour reset of your hours of service, as if gaining more hours to drive is equivalent of pay. Others don't pay if you're at home while you wait to be dispatched. That's right. Will you be compensated for breakdown time for inclement weather? If you'll be pulling a flatbed trailer, what's the pay for securing the load or for tarping? What about trailer cleanouts? I thought about breakdown pay. I've never remember getting any kind of breakdown pay or anything for inclement weather. Now, back in my flatbed days, we did get tarp pay. It wasn't a whole lot, but we did get paid for tarping a load. I've never been paid for cleaning out a trailer as far as a dry van. I mean, what's the pay schedule? You also want to know how often you'll be paid and if there are any conditions attached. You'll be paid in the same week to deliver a load, the following week, or longer. Does the paperwork need to be in the office, or does the carrier pay off the electronic record? Good question. I've been with one company back in the day that would pay as soon as you sent your empty call over the Qualcomm system. Other companies I worked for did not pay until they had your trip sheet and the signed bill of lading transflowed to their payroll. Even they would add that up and not pay till the following week. So there's that. If you need to advance cash from your checks to fund your time on the road, make sure you ask the procedure for that. How much can you draw per week? What fees will be charged back to you? Now, that's another thing. You start getting cash advances on your loads. I mean, one company I did, I think it was like $60 every other day. And one of them was limited to 100 a week. But that's something you don't really want to get into about cash advances costs. I've seen it happen from time to time. People out here, they get so many cash advances, and that's how they live. by the time they get their check, there's nothing on it because they had too many cash advances. So they're living from cash advance to cash advance, which is not a good thing to get yourself caught up in. Home time can be a confusing topic, and some carriers don't make it easy to predict when you get back to your family. For example, the term weekend probably doesn't mean you'll be home for supper on Friday and leave on Monday morning. True, it may mean that you'll get home for at least a 34-hour restart at some point of the weekend. It could be Saturday afternoon or even Sunday when you actually pull into the driveway. That is right. I work for a company that promised home weekends. So a lot of people would get mad when they weren't home Friday, and they were mad they had to leave out when they had to leave out Sunday instead of Monday. So weekends is a very, I guess the carrier defines what a home weekend is. It gets you through the house on the weekend. We get a full weekend off. So who knows? Be wary of that too. Be sure to ask what equipment you'll be using. Now, this is what we covered in the first part of this. Equipment is another area that can result in disappointment for new hires. Most carriers can provide an average age of trucks in their fleets. Keep in mind that the average should be halfway between the oldest and newest trucks. In other words, a fleet with a 3-year average will have some 6-year-old trucks in it. Many drivers have a favorite brand of truck, and most have preferences for engine size, governed speed, transmission type, and more. If you're picky about equipment, ask questions up front. That's right. When I started trucking, you had to work your way up. All the new hires, new drivers with less experience, got the older trucks in the fleet. They saved the newer trucks for the people. You had to work your way up. Like people that had been in the company for a while, longest, got the newer equipment. And that's why you start work your way from the bottom to the top. I don't know how that is these days. That's how it was when I first started. How you ask questions is important too. If you ask in an accusatory manner, you could alienate the recruiter who's trying to hire you. Stay calm. Ask for clarification when necessary. Also, keep in mind that some carriers do a great job of keeping their recruiters informed about what happens in the company's dispatch, safety, or maintenance departments, while others aren't as diligent about providing information. You want to make the best possible decision for you and your family? The questions you ask during the recruiting process can go a long way towards helping you choose a job you enjoy and want to stay. That's right. You talk to your recruiter, just be nice. You don't have to say, "Well, I've done this. I've got 2 years experience, so I'm not going to do that or whatever." I heard that a lot. People get a year or two experience under their belt and they think they've been driving for 45 years or something. But here's a little thing about Cliff. That's a good article, Cliff. Giving you a shout out here. Cliff Abbott is an experienced commercial vehicle driver and owner operator who still holds a CDL in his home state of Alabama. In nearly 40 years in trucking, he's been an instructor and trainer and has managed safety and recruiting operations for several carriers. Having never lost the love of the road, Cliff has written a book and hundreds of songs and has been writing for the trucker for more than a decade. So there you go, Cliff. Good old Cliff Abbott. Good article here. Good question. So what? Anybody can think of any other questions they might want to ask a recruiter? The part about I was covered earlier when I was recruiting, talking about the automatic restriction on your license. That was a new thing because when I heard about that before, where I was my 28 years of trucking, last 5 or 6 years, I heard about it, but they didn't really pay much attention to it. But when I started recruiting, I did a little stint there recruiting for a few months. It was all new to me. So you got a CDL and don't know how to drive a manual transmission. That was kind of foreign to me, but I guess now with all the truck manufacturers not um, making manual transmissions, it's mostly automatics. That's the thing of the truck industry. All automatics. Very few manuals left. If you can drive a manual and don't mind driving an automatic, you got more options. If you're looking for a different carrier, if you just got the automatic restriction, I wouldn't say you're limited all that much, but you are limited up to a point as far as companies you drive now. Equipment, like I said earlier, does it really matter? You want to drive a T680, you want to drive a W9 or a Cascadia or a Volvo or whatever. Does it really matter if you're a company driver? I can see if you're an owner operator, you might want to buy the truck you prefer, but if you're a company driver, does it really matter what kind of a truck? I'm just making you money, getting you miles, and it's comfortable. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Call me out. Call me out on this video. Let me know down in the comment section if y'all have any questions that you might ask a recruiter or truckers should ask a recruiter. Got any recruiters out there that has to deal with this stuff? People not asking the right questions. But be thorough. If you're looking for a new job, be thorough and do your homework, do your research. Just don't jump on the first company that pops up. So that's it with this video. I appreciate everybody watching. Everybody have a good day and stay safe.